In this video, we will explore the Battle of Austerlitz in 1805, where Napoleon defeated the Austrian and Russian armies during the War of the Third Coalition. Never had history seen a quicker rise to power than Napoleon Bonaparte's rise to become Emperor of France and the undisputed power of Europe. From the son of poor Corsican nobility to the Emperor of France. Not even Caesar, Alexander the Great, or Hannibal were able to rise from such circumstances to obtain their status as leaders. The French Revolution saw the execution of Louis XVIII and his wife Marie Antoinette. This sent shockwaves through Europe similar to the one sent when Charles I was executed during the English Civil War. In both cases, a monarch of a major European power had been overthrown by popular uprisings led by the discontent masses. Other monarchs thought that if this could happen to England and France, then it could happen to them. European powers sought to end the French experiment by forming a series of coalitions. Time after time, Napoleon would fight back each coalition, but no victory would be as great as his finest hour at the Battle of Austerlitz in 1805. Defeated, Europe could not bear to stand idly in the face of Napoleon's coronation. In response, Europe formed a third coalition to defeat Napoleon once and for all. This coalition would be funded in part by Britain with the combined forces of Prussia, Austria, and Russia. Austria gathered its forces under General Mack, who would command a sizable Austrian force. To supplement the Austrians, Emperor Alexander of Russia would send a large contingent, over 100,000, to support Mack. Once the armies linked up, Napoleon would not be able to match their combined strength. Against the combined numerical strength of the Third Coalition, Napoleon would be easily outnumbered. However, Napoleon had mastered the art of defeat in detail. In the face of numerically disadvantageous odds, Napoleon would spread out his corps, which sought to keep his enemy guessing on his main point of attack. When Napoleon gave the orders, all corps, at breakneck speed, would converge on one point. Here, Napoleon knew that if the Russian forces linked up with the Austrian forces, there would be little chance of victory. Knowing that the Russians were still months away from being able to assemble and march to meet up with the Austrians, he went on the offensive to employ defeat in detail. As Mack stationed his army at Ulm, Napoleon marched with his corps scattered in different directions. Mack was unable to pinpoint the location or intention of the main French army. Austrian General Mack saw Napoleon's corps approaching in several directions. By the time he had realized it, Napoleon had engaged the majority of Mack's forces while several corps had already set up an encircling maneuver. Napoleon drew Mack into smaller engagements, mostly on the Western Front, which kept Mack guessing regarding Napoleon's main point of attack. As Mack struggled to decipher the battle, the speed of Napoleon's corps quickly encircled Mack from the north and cut off his path of retreat to the east before Mack even knew what happened. At Ulm, the Austrians offered an unconditional surrender to Napoleon and the French. Kutuzov was shocked at the news of Mack's sudden defeat at Ulm. He had not anticipated Napoleon to go on the offensive so quickly and severely misjudged the speed of the French corps. After marching for weeks, Kutuzov's massive army was exhausted, and he had hoped to join the Austrians to wage a combined war against Napoleon. Caught in this difficult situation, Kutuzov decided to retreat back to Russia, or at least to a more favorable defensive position. Russian General Bagration fought a series of successful rearguard actions to delay the French army. Napoleon's corps eventually reached Kutuzov's vanguard, where he ordered all French corps to converge near the town of Austerlitz. Kutuzov occupied the strategically advantageous Pratzen Heights. Napoleon strategically weakened his right flank in an effort to entice the bulk of the Russian forces to attack on this side. This would lead the Russians to abandon the Pratzen Heights as they saw a chance to outflank and crush Napoleon's weakened right flank. On paper, Kutuzov had the advantage with the high ground and an opposing weak flank. However, Napoleon had a trick up his sleeve. Although his right flank had been weakened, Napoleon expected Marshal Davout to arrive in time with Third Corps to strengthen the right flank and repel the Russian onslaught. As the main Russian attack fell on the right flank, Napoleon would strike in the center and left and encircle the Russians. As Napoleon predicted, the majority of Russian forces fell on his weakened right flank, and on schedule, Davout arrived with his 3 corps to reinforce the right. Davout and the right flank held in the face of overwhelming numbers. It was at this point that Napoleon delivered the coup de grace and attacked the Russians with all of his forces in the center and left flank, famously even committing his royal guard. Napoleon's master plan had worked. In the face of another European coalition set on his destruction, despite being outnumbered, Napoleon delivered a masterpiece at Austerlitz. In the short span of a few months, Napoleon annihilated the Austrian and Russian armies and occupied the Austrian capital of Vienna. His improbable victory at Austerlitz solidified Napoleon as master of Europe. In his proclamation after Austerlitz, Napoleon stated, "In less than 4 hours, an army of 100,000 men, commanded by emperors of Russia and Austria, has either been cut to pieces or dispersed. Those who escaped your steel drowned in the lakes. See how, in 2 months, this third coalition has been beaten and unstrung." In little less than 10 years, Napoleon had gone from the general of the French army of Italy to master of Europe. The next 4 years would see Napoleon inflict heavy defeats on more coalitions bent on his destruction. However, in 1812, Napoleon's Grande Armée would infamously face its annihilation at the hands of the Russian winter. He would eventually be defeated at Leipzig in 1813. Nonetheless, Napoleon etched his name into the annals of history with his victory at Austerlitz. With the world against him, Austerlitz represented Napoleon's finest hour. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. All battlefield images were created from scratch, so your support would be sincerely appreciated.